see what technology is doing to us. I can see what bad lifestyles are doing to us.
You're seeing the effects of AI and lifestyle on the brain. Like, what does that look like?
I can tell you how fast you are losing your brain. This is the first time in history they're seeing a downward trend in IQ.
The counter is also now you can read 10 books in the time you would read one book. Can we stop it? Or can we gain it back?
I just want to let everybody out there before we start this. This guy, Dr. Kavin Mistry, blew our freaking minds. First of all, what he told us is we're all getting dumber, okay? And he told us why we're getting dumber, and then he told us how to actually fix it. And he actually was telling us that there's actual physical changes happening in our brains.
I think he also said that the children's, this is the first time in history that people's IQs are less than the previous generation. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So guys, this guy is a neuroradiologist. By the way, he's a bit of a sweetheart too. Great
Sweet
guy.
Yeah. We've had really good people on lately, just like people I would hang out with. Yeah.
Ben, you hardly hang out with me. Like, what do you mean you're going to hang with our guests, but you don't hang out with me?
Well, I mean, I said I would. I didn't say I'm going to. I would hang out with you every day if I could, Dom.
Personally, I want to be wanted. If I'm being honest with you, okay. So just
you would be there. You would be there.
Pity is not an option.
You would be there.
All right. So, anyways, make sure, guys, this is a fantastic episode. I would have to tell you, this is almost at this point like one of my favorites because I learned so much. What Dr. Kavin Mistry, you're going to be so popular at parties with all the statistics that he gave. So check it out.
Human Intentions fan. What do you guys think it is? Listen to the episode.
Kavin, welcome to More You podcast.
Dom, pleasure to be here.
Awesome. I wanted to getting to prepare for the show, and actually you get to learn about all these incredible people and things they're doing. I really want to start out with the fact that you are a neuroradiologist. And why don't we just at least take a second for at least people to understand what that actually is? I also really want to understand at what point you decided to kind of dedicate yourself to this direction of wellness and how you got there too.
As a kid, I was so fascinated with the human body. And when I learned that in radiology, you can peek into people's insides and actually view them on the screen, to me, that was just so fascinating, But kidding aside, what amazes me about radiology is that it's so tangible, right? We're not guessing at it. We could actually see the changes. And as we venture into this new era of technology and AI, and then we'll talk about all this. And a lot of people ask, what is this doing to us as humans, and what is it doing to our brains? And I actually see it. And I can see what technology is doing to us. I can see what bad lifestyles are doing to us, and very tangibly on my screens. And so as a neuroradiologist, the term neuroradiology is that we're in the imaging field as a radiologist. And so for people listening to this, imaging means that anybody's ever had a CAT scan, MRI, ultrasound, mammogram, all of that is radiology. Within radiology, there's a subspecialty called neuroradiology, which focuses on the brain, spine, and ENT. ENT meaning anything related to the ears, nose, and throat. And so all of the sort of cancers related to the neck and all that we also deal with. So that's the subspecialty within radiology. And I think the human body is amazing, but even more amazing is our central nervous system, is because that is who we are, right? What you are is really what is sitting between your ears, right? Everything that you call you is there. And so for me to see that is just fascinating.
So Kavin, what are you seeing? You just said that, you're seeing the effects of AI and lifestyle on the brain. Like, what does that look like?
I can answer that question from many different angles, but let's just unpack that a little bit for people listening to this. One of the things that people talk about, we say like, we tell people, as physicians, okay, have this healthy lifestyle, eat better, exercise more, and for most people, that amounts to, it's very, sometimes becomes very subjective. They don't have a concrete measurement. Maybe their labs improve, or their cholesterol level numbers go down, or their inflammatory markers like CRP or whatnot goes down.
But they
So
start
these are some
seeing
of these.
their curves and their angles and their shadows a little better too, Kevin. That's how you get into my You get
Yeah,
in shape, now get the
sure,
six pack.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, physically they're watching there, and that's a great point, right? Always nice to have less fat and
Yeah.
more muscle, and they see that. But in a from a radiology perspective, and where you actually see changes that matter, and I'm not saying that muscle mass and low fat percentage, it doesn't matter. I don't want to downplay any of that. But when we're talking about things like vascular inflammation, vascular calcifications, and what's happening in your aorta in your body, but even you take a step further, things that we thought were very ill-defined, when somebody says, "I'm losing my memory," and is it really because you're losing your mind? When I say losing your mind, meaning literally losing brain matter, right? Or is it just something that related to lack of sleep or whatnot? Now, and what I'm seeing that's amazing, in the past, I would say a couple of years, with AI technology, we're able to do what is known as volumetric imaging. Okay, so what I mean by that is, traditionally, people get a CAT scan of the brain, they get an MRI of the brain, and a radiologist would interpret it, and we will look at changes. We'll say, okay, this brain looks like a 50-year-old, this brain looks like a 60-year-old, whatnot. And usually I can look at a brain and tell, guess at how old the patient is. But what is interesting now with volumetric imaging, we're able to take volumes of certain parts of the brain that are related to specific functions. So, parts of the brain that have to do with focus, parts of the brain that have to do with memory, particularly. Okay, so there's a particular area, and not to get too geeky on everybody here, but there's a part of the brain called the hippocampal formation, right, which has to do with memory. And the reason I bring this up, and which is I think is very interesting for people to hear this, in the past few years, we've been able to use AI for volumetric imaging. And what that does is that the AI goes in, maps these areas of the brain, calculates a volume. And what is interesting is, we've had women, and I say women, particularly guys, somehow like a lot of women tend to be a lot more cognizant of their memory, and they're much more proactive about getting image. That's why we've been seeing more women, and also dementia
Slightly higher,
tends to
yeah.
impact a
Yeah.
little higher, right? So that's why women are more concerned about that. In the past few years, I would say we've had women come in for memory issues, and perfectly normal scan. If they had an MRI, the MRI portion of it normal. When we do their volumes of their hippocampal, normal, but sort of on the lower side of normal, sorry, the lower end of normal. They come in a year later. We've had women who says, "You know what? I still feel like I'm losing memory." They come in a year later, still a normal scan, but their hippocampus, still in the normal range, has dropped volume. Okay? And what that means is that, if after the age of 30, if you do nothing, you lose your brain matter, your physical brain matter, at about 0.7% every year.
And
Okay.
Kevin, what's doing nothing? What do you mean by that?
When I say doing nothing, meaning that you physically, you're sedentary, you don't pay attention to your diet, you don't pay attention to what you're drinking, you're not taking any supplements. I'm thinking no proactive,
Well, and it's got to be a mental stimulation component of that too, right? I mean, there's those word games, all that kind of brain
the,
training
the,
stuff. Yeah.
the brain training, and being active, fine motor skills
Yeah.
and all that. But I'm saying, like, take all that off the table. You just say that, you know what, I'm just going to live my life, not really being proactive about anything. If that's the case, if you do nothing, the rate of decline of your brain is 0.7% every year.
And was that a
Okay.
study? Is that where you're
So
pulling that
this
from?
is this is pooled data from, I guess, thousands of patients. This is what the lot of these AI companies that do this volumetric imaging, they use
Yeah.
these compiled
Standardizations.
atlases
Yeah.
that done, yeah, standard. These are standards that are used throughout all, kind of averaging everything. It's come out down to 0.7%. Now, Does that mean that is it at 30 is the rate of decline slightly less compared to when you're 60? Yes. But when you average everything, it comes down to 0.7%. A couple of these women, their rate of decline from a year before was around 2.2%. 50-year-old, the average, like I said, is 0.7%. It's 2.2%. Still a normal brain MRI. Okay, everything is normal. But the curve, in order to draw a slope, you need 2 points, right? So once we have one data point, we have a second data point, I can tell you how fast you are losing your brain.
That's pretty interesting. So the reason for this, though, is you're saying it's primarily lifestyle, it's what you're eating, it's supplementation. But are you also saying, because I'm going to take you all the way back to your AI comment in the beginning, are you saying that it's the laziness of not having to critical think and do those kind of things that's contributing to that?
Dom, it's multifactorial. And I would say, first of all, let's preface that by saying that some people have a genetic predisposition to dementia. So there is a genetic component. So, if you're carrying the APO4 gene, or if you're carrying one copy versus two copy, there are a lot of there's several celebrities that you may know, who have done gene testing. They have two copies, and they're more prone to dementia. Taking all those aspects of the table,
Chris
let's
Hemsworth.
say,
That's who it is.
Yes, him. Yeah, I didn't want to mention
I mean,
it,
no,
but
he's
you're right. He's come out with it, and he's very
yeah.
vocal about it. So yeah,
Great
he's done
jawline,
the
Chris
series
Hemsworth.
where yeah.
You, Dr. C, would know. So, Kavin, I'm your PR agent. What the headline here is that we can actually track now how fast you're losing your mind.
Exactly.
Got it.
I can tell you how fast you're losing your mind, literally.
But can we stop it?
Okay,
Or
that's
can we gain it back?
That's a fantastic question. And that segues into kind of what Dom was asking, right? What is causing it and what's not. So let me lead with the study that is got a lot of headlines. You guys may have seen it. This study, this is specifically geared towards dementia and mild cognitive impairment. It was addressing people with mild cognitive impairment. Mild cognitive impairment, for people listening to this. So before you have full-blown dementia, and let's say you have an assessment done for your memory, you either maybe fall into like a full-blown dementia category. There's a cutoff. And then before that, if you have mild cognitive issues, then you qualify as that category of mild cognitive impairment. Now, it's important that if people fall into that range, what are the options, right? Like we're talking about all this, right? It's all good and fine. In radiology, we're able to see this, but okay, so now I'm losing my brain faster. What can I do about it, right? That's the question. So the study, it looked at hippocampal volume and said that if you work out, and this is I believe in this study, there was a combination of aerobic exercise predominantly, and also some weight training involved, mixed in with that, okay? Altogether, if you clock 150 minutes of activity, and specifically more aerobic than resistance training, it grew the hippocampus in these subjects, meaning
Is that per week? 150 minutes per week?
Per week. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Yeah, 150 minutes per week. You can divide it up any way you want. Okay, so you could do three long sessions, preferably. I mean, if you do the math, 150 minutes per week, you aim for like half an hour a day, roughly around. Then you'll hit that goal. You know what I'm saying? During your weekdays, if you were hitting half an hour, so.
And the critical piece of that, though, you have to be in the aerobic stage. A slow walk for 150 minutes isn't necessarily doing the same thing as real, actual vigorous exercise. Is that
correct? you would definitely have to be in like zone 3 or zone 4 to see the benefit. Okay.
And just for people out there to understand that, what is zone 3 and zone 4?
So just basically sort of giving numbers, I would say like zone 1 and 2 is like like a brisk walk or like a swift walk where you're able to have a conversation. Zone 3 and 4 is kind of like mid range where you're like really working hard. Your heart rate is in like the mid to top normal. And zone 5 is where it's all in. Like you can't even hold a conversation. So when I say 3-4 is that it's this moderate level of activity, right? Like you are sweating. You are sweating, and you're working out. You're not really able to have like a active conversation, without taking deep breaths. So, anyways, 150 minutes, a measurable increase in hippocampal formation. And so when I saw that study, I said, that's unbelievable. Think about that, right? You're able to grow your brain, particularly part of your brain that has to do with memory, so for all the other reasons we talk about for exercise, right? Heart disease and fat loss, right, and all that, everything, all that is good, but I would say that if you can grow your hippocampus using this, I think it's fantastic. That is even more reason that exercise becomes a star player here.
Is that becoming like, how new is it? Is it somewhat settled science? Is it challenged? Because it's a pretty big claim and it's exciting, like vastly exciting, especially for guys like probably all of us that are working out all the time.
Yep.
I'm just trying to understand just how solid that actually
No,
is.
this study was a legitimate study. It was not like one of those frivolous, like low power type of a study. I mean, this was like a randomized controlled trial, and I can send you guys the link if you guys want to post it later.
Yeah.
With this episode, that people can look at
We'd
it.
love to.
That'd be great. But no, that is a legitimate study. To answer your second question, Dom, is that is technology a culprit in this? Like I said, all of these changes are multifactorial, but what are we doing to ourselves with technology, and particularly with AI? Okay. And so one of the things is, as you know, with technology, people, you really don't have to remember too many things anymore, right? Before, people used to remember phone numbers, people used to remember addresses, people used to remember names, for God's sakes, right? And now, and now you're like, if you don't have your phone, you feel naked. I certainly do. I'm guilty of that, and because we're so relying on that for all that. So does that take a toll on our memory? Yes, it does. But beyond that, one thing is that even moving out of that particular area of the brain, moving out of the memory center or the hippocampal formation, when we take a look at parts of our brain that have to do with focus, okay, and we look at like like the prefrontal cortex, right, where it's have to do with focus and attention. All the studies, the recent studies that are coming out, if you look at people who engage with short form content. Okay.
That's TikTok,
And what is
Instagram, the
interesting,
reels. Yeah.
yeah, right. Short form content, which everybody devours, right? Instagram, TikTok, and whatnot, particularly adolescents. Okay. We're seeing that it is impacting their brain, in particularly those areas that have to do with focus, and attention. And what is interesting, this was shocking to me. Somebody just mentioned this to me. There's a study that looked at short form content, adolescence, and IQ, and they're saying this is the first time in history that they're seeing a downward trend in IQ because of the teens and adolescents who engage with short form content heavily.
Wow.
Which
Okay,
is
so that's a big statement. So let me just rephrase, because I think that's huge. I don't want people to miss this. You're basically saying
TikTok makes you dumber. Yeah.
Yeah, this is huge. Is that for the first time in history, we're actually seeing a decline in IQ. And what you're saying is that the belief is that's directly related to short form content.
It is related to short form content and also with the upspike in AI engagement. Okay. And what we're seeing is
Well,
that,
I'm going to push back there just a little bit, Kevin, because it depends how you use AI, right? Like it makes me, it
I
makes me
totally
think
agree.
more. It makes me
And
work out more. I mean, the problem is, it's probably the more fortunate portion of the society that's going to really benefit from it in that way, right?
yeah, no, no, and I totally, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I should preface that and saying that it depends on how you use AI. But if technology, with every technology, the question we have to ask is, what is the trade-off? Okay, what am I trading off in this? Okay, am I trading a cognitive ability for what I just did? Okay, and what we're seeing is, so particularly, let's just address the short form content. What we're seeing with adolescents engaging with short form content is that they're losing their attention span. Okay, they're losing their attention span, and their attention span is getting shorter and shorter. Okay, let me ask you guys a question. What do you think the human attention span is now? If you were to give me a time, what do you think the
Like
human attention?
in minutes, or do we have to put it in
I
seconds,
believe
or
it's like
It's
7 seconds or 11 seconds. Like
Oh
just
wow, you're
just
good.
slightly below a goldfish, I think is the way they
Yeah.
phrase it now. Yeah.
Yes. It's slightly below
Yeah.
a goldfish.
We
Yes,
read the same books,
yes.
guys. We
That's
went through the same, you know what I mean? Yeah.
okay? So I want to just get something clear, because I really there's so much more we got to cover. This first time in history, this IQ decline. This was a study that was done, or are they just seeing they're just seeing the numbers, and people are reporting on these numbers?
So the people are reporting on these numbers. I have yet to read that full study, but this is I was on a podcast interview and we were talking about reading books. Data that's coming out is that with people sort of using AI for summary and like really trying to like make concise information, right? What we're seeing is that because before, let's say you had a project or homework, you had to read the content and then synthesize that information and then come up your that reading comprehension aspect of with reading the full content and then coming up. Now you can feed the PDF into Claude or ChatGPT, get bullet points, and then say, okay, you know what? Why should I read the book, right? I have this 2-page summary of the book, and like that. But what's the trade-off here? The trade-off is you traded that whole part of your brain that actually is visualizing that book and going through that aspect of reading comprehension and going through all that thought process and that logic and everything like that. And the impact of all of this, so the short form content and the AI use in that way, and this is what I was saying, AI being used in a way that it's taking you away from reading the actual book. Okay.
The
And
counter is also, now you can read 10 books in the time you would read one book, right? I think this is the thing about the people who really take advantage of it in the right way. I would argue, if you read a book cover to cover, there's a lot of fluff in there, and it took you 3 days to read it, but you were able to optimize 10 books in 3 days. Still the same amount of cognition, thinking, driving, maybe even more creativity, but you got 10 book the knowledge, even if AI is annoying, but Claude knows what the hell he's doing, right? So he took out the useful portions of that book, but now I have the useful portion of 10 books versus the maybe the calmness of one book. But that's
What I think Kevin might be saying is that the act of taking all that information and taking that and filtering out
good and bad.
what you're like, the stuff that you're like saying is fluff, that action alone is potentially beneficial to the brain that it's now not getting. Did I summarize that? Because look, I can still summarize. I didn't even use that. I didn't use that.
I don't know. I saw him looking down there, Kevin.
I'm making notes.
So yes, in the same time you could read 10 books and get a summary, but the fact that you didn't go through that journey, there's a trade-off because you gave up that reading comprehension skill, the ability to kind of what Dom just said, being able to filter that. So So there is a trade-off. Yes, maybe on this side you get more information, but when you're in that
Yeah,
adolescent
definitely
phase, in that
kids.
teen, phase, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality, and you're if you're trading that aspect, then you're missing out. The second part, the flip side of this is when people read, and one of the things is what we're seeing is that there's no such thing as multitasking, right? We're just monotasking very poorly. Okay, our brain. If you look at our primal design, the way our brain is designed, it fires one circuit at a time, but it is able to switch circuits. So what I'm saying that if you're, let's say, reading a book, watching TV, and have an active text going on all at the same time, you think you're multitasking, but you're not. You're actually monotasking each of them, but very poorly. You're switching tasks, right?
And you're losing some throughput from the switching, probably too. It's
Yeah.
not like there's three things and it's 33, 33, 33. It's like, no, you're maybe only getting 25, 25, 25 because you're losing something in between.
You're losing something in between. And a deeper layer to that is that from neuroscience perspective, and if you've read this book called Deep Work by Cal Newport, if you haven't, I would really suggest reading it. And he goes into how our brain thinks and this whole aspect of monotasking. And the whole point here is this: it takes about 20 minutes for us doing one task. When you do one task for 20 minutes, your brain synchronizes all of its activity and starts making that task very efficient. The circuit becomes very efficient. And now you go from just a task to a state we call the flow state. And these are all that research that's coming out of flow, where you're able to do with one activity without effort because your brain has developed such an efficiency in that area, right? It takes about 20 minutes of doing one activity to drop into that what we call is that deep work space. Okay, and another word for that is that flow state. Now think about it. How many messages do you think people get per day? If I ask you a question, what do you think? What's an average in
North of
terms of
100.
notifications and everything like that? What do
Yeah,
you think
50, 100. Yeah.
per day?
Gotta be I think it's like 150.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's 180. That's the average, right? That people get. Now think about it. Divide the number of your waking hours. Divide that by 180. See what a number you get. Do people ever have 20 minutes of anything that they can actually experience deep work? And the answer is no.
And Kevin, going back to, I feel like the word we haven't used when we're talking about reading and we're talking about using AI and we're talking about the IQ going down, it seems that we would lose recollection of what it is we heard, what it is we've read, because there's so much short form content. There's just so much volume. It's hard to grasp on to pieces that you're actually able to hold on to, keep, memorize, and recollect. Is that we come full circle there?
So if your attention span gets shorter and shorter, right, then your ability to even absorb information starts going down. And we know that unless you have proper attention, your ability to register information is all correlated with your level of attention. And that's pretty it's fairly logical, right? It's like it's same thing we just talked about, right? It's trying to read a book while watching TV and having a chat. You won't be able to retain that information because your level of attention is not there. What we're seeing is that these kids are losing that level of attention, and that means they're not able to garner, like in whatever they're doing, they're not able to garner that information from whatever that they're engaging in. You know what I'm saying? That retention capacity is going down.
And it's
Yeah,
really
that makes
like
sense.
any muscle. If you don't use one arm for a week or a month, it gets smaller, right? You don't use that portion of your brain, it's gonna. The volumetric studies. If you had a twin study, short form versus podcast, I bet you could show that in your volumetric studies, or a functional MRI, or some sort of a blood flow study to the brain. Yeah.
Yeah, and to your point is that the rule in neuroscience is the neurons that fire together wire together, right? when you the whole thing about this flow state and this deep work is that when you can do one activity for a long period of time, you start being developing efficiency. That's how people become
Yeah.
experts. Like you talk about people like Yo-Yo Ma who plays the cello. He's not thinking about
Mhm.
playing cello. He just plays the cello because it's
Yeah.
wired in. It's like hardwired in his in you know what I'm saying. He's not thinking about it anymore. And so, but if you never enter, how do you even get to that state? If you never have those 20 minutes, I'm saying 20 minutes is the entry point, but if people never have that, you never become an expert in
Yeah.
anything.
That makes sense. First of all, this is fascinating. We spent great time on understanding what the problem is. I'd like to go into what the solution is. I like to try really get an understanding of what it is that you're doing to help people with this and the things that you're doing and your method. I'm really interested in that. So if you can talk about that, that would be great.
Perfect. So, Dom, all these problems we discussed, and I would say overarching, there's one solution from my perspective. The one solution is this is we have to understand our primal design. How are we designed to think, and how is our body designed to perform? Okay. And once we understand our primal design, then the solution becomes need to have alignment with that primal design. Okay. And that's my whole focus of my work and what I teach and everything like that, is that one singular answer is primal alignment, meaning are you aligned with the way you were designed? And so one thing we already mentioned is that our brain is very, very sophisticated if we understand that it is a monotasker, not a multitasker. Okay. As best we try to multitask, we still only monotask poorly. But if you understand we are a monotasker, then the solution becomes is that once we understand how we were built, then we can align our lifestyle and how we approach our day and everything we do along with that. And so my book is called Primal Health Design. And the goal of my book was to identify 7 areas in our life where we can align with our primal design. 7 paradigms that if we fix those areas, then we're acting the way we were designed. Every aspect of our life starts to improve.
Okay, so let's talk about the seven, and then I want to talk about what you believe those seven
Yeah, how to
would
actually
do
align them.
for
Yeah,
an
yeah.
individual.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep. So let me give you a 30,000 feet overview, and then we can drill down on whatever area you guys
Great.
like. Okay.
Yeah.
So first thing is, I think in the popular culture right now, I think we've gotten good at trying to optimize. I would say the first three connections, or our first three primal connections. It's connecting with earth, body, and food. And what I mean by earth is aligning our body with our circadian rhythm, right? Like the way the sun cycle. We know that if you work against the circadian rhythm, it's like swimming against the current, right? It's that your body naturally is synced with the sun, and which means our cognition and everything like that is aligned with the circadian rhythm. And which means, what do I mean by that? Assuming sun rises at 6 a.m. and sunset is at 6 p.m., when the sun is at its peak, your digestion and your cognition is at peak also. So we learn best if you look at between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. actually. Okay. And if you look at yourself and if you study yourself, right, you'll see that you'll have the highest level of focus and retention and all that along those lines. Okay. Eastern medicine, Eastern cultures actually knew this. So they used to have their heaviest meal around noon because your digestion also peaks around that time. Okay. So aligning with earth, body, and food forms this physical base. And once people have mastered that, I think you can go out a level further, which is, I would say, your mental health, and which is aligning with that is the mind body connection. And that addresses what we just talked about, is that understanding how your mind works in terms of this, it being like a monotasker. Okay, it's that it is very good. You can do amazing things. You can become a yo-yo ma, but you just have to know how to enter that state. And one of my main things with when I work with adolescents, when I work with adults, is that I want people to experience dropping into that deep work, that flow state. And once people experience that once, they're like, oh, that's what it feels like. And there are different techniques we get into and show people that. Okay. And we can talk about that a little bit in terms of specifics. When you have that, you can move out. I think once you've mastered the physical health, the mental health, then I still think there is another layer, okay, and that is, well, we talk about emotional health. And when the emotional health, this is where we talk about connection with you as, and I don't mean yourself as, people say I'm a doctor, career or whatnot. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you intrinsically, because people intrinsically, I believe, have a certain strengths, okay. Some people have an aptitude as a connector. Some people have aptitude as a thinker. Some people have aptitude as a creator. And I think when you connect with that primal drive that everybody has, it naturally awakens that inner drive in you, and you people flourish right away when you do that. It's like if you look at somebody who's very, very creative, right? Like my wife, her artwork is behind me and all that. Very, very creative. She was an artist since she was three years old. She knew she was going to be an artist. Like her parents couldn't make her do anything else. Now you take my wife and you give her a bank job, she's going to suffocate, right? Because she's a creative, right? She needs that creative outlet, right? I think everybody, if you find that quality, people don't think about it as a form of health, but when you find out what makes you tick, okay, is it connecting with people, is it connecting with your creativity, whatnot, you blossom, okay. And so one is finding yourself, connecting with yourself, and then the second piece is when you do that, when you connect with that element within you, that you feel like I was created for this, okay, um, you automatically become a type of person that connects with other people. And that's another form of
Yeah.
health, that is that how you're connecting with people. As we know, we look at all the
Yeah, there's
studies from
very, very
Harvard and
good
everything
literature
like
on
that.
this one. That's well established, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like that, your longevity, happiness, and long-term health is all related to how you're
Mm.
aligned with people, and so that forms this emotional layer. And I used to think that that's it, right? That's the whole, that's the whole equation. Until I lost both my parents in a very short period of time a while back. What I realized that the last piece is what I call is existential health, is connecting with our mortality. Okay, and and what I understood is that when you connect with the fact that you are mortal, the quality of your life changes, because all of a sudden you stopped going from this phase where you think you have endless tomorrows to a state where you're like, I need to make every day count. Okay. And when you wake up with that intention that I am mortal, I have limited time, I need to make this day count, the quality of everything you do changes. The way you work out changes, the way you eat changes, the way you talk to people changes. And I believe that's a form of health that people
Yeah.
don't think about. But when you do that, it's the capstone on everything. So that's the journey in the book that I take
And,
people through.
That's good, man.
and so, Kevin, you have this book, but you're helping people through this journey. Is that part of what your business is too? Is to help
Yes.
people through this journey?
Yes.
So, for instance, I love what you're talking about, like what makes you tick. Like, I actually do truly believe that people are meant to
Mhm.
do a certain thing. I was not meant to do accounting. That's not where my world is. But if you put me in a job being an accountant, I'd be totally miserable. So you help them kind of find and connect to these things. Is that what it is?
Right, right. So, and I have a couple of resources we'll talk about at the end, okay? But one of the things that I do with people in this area is I developed a series of questions which probes your intrinsic drives, right? Are you, like in terms of connecting with people, in terms of creativity and whatnot? And after doing many of this, and I know there are different other systems that have tried to kind of figure out different personality types and things like that, and they're used out there. I wanted to really simplify it, and here, after doing a lot of this, what I found is that there are about 4 areas where people fall into. Okay, and one is that either people are thinkers. They're like kind of thought leadership type of thing. They like to solve problems. Some people are creatives. They just want to be creative, like my wife. Like she needs to be creating new things. And some people thrive on communication and connection, meaning they need to communicate and connect with people. Otherwise, they'd starve, right? And then the last category is people are, I call them seekers, in a way that they need to visualize a more holistic picture. They're like the ones that see the bigger picture, right? Like they're like and like that. And unless they do that, they feel suffocated. They need to be always thinking about like the greater good and like whatnot. And so after all that, I feel like people tend to fall into those 4 categories. And I think that with proper questioning, working with people on the corporate side too, what I tell people is this, that there's no perfect job. I don't think any job falls into one specific category, okay? But you have to figure out which area you thrive in, because you can then design your career or your job, or you can design the tasks in your job that focus more on that strength. And if you do that, every day will be a vacation.
And the beauty of that, I tell this to the residents and fellows we train, like, find out what you like to do what you like, you get better at it, more people come to you for it, and that's like the cycle. Then you're getting better at what you love, and more people come to see you because you're getting good at it, and it's like this nonstop thing, and that's how you become the cello.
And it juices you, and it juices you at the same time. I love that you said that, and I'm glad you're teaching that. And I'd give a very quick like personal story. Went into radiology, great field. I really enjoyed everything like that. And I am a partner in the group. We sold the group, doing really well and everything like that. But I'm just kind of going through the motions, right? And what I realized is, and I didn't have someone like me to take me through this process and give me this insight. So I'm trying to do this all myself. And I'm thinking like, is this it? Is this all to life? Like just reading films every day? Is this all to life? And then as I'm doing this, and I had to ask myself, and there was a whole journey to this, and I don't want to get into all that, but I realized my superpower, or what juices me, is teaching. I like taking complex information and making it approachable for people. And it started with teaching my residents, where they're walking into radiology, all this stuff that we got to learn, and the brain and this cord anatomy and everything like that. And I like to like take it all and like boil it down and say, let's start with one thing. Okay. Let's start. And I like to give, like for a head CT, I like to give residents an approach. I'm like, here, let's start from the outside. Right. and then work. And I found that I was good at it. People respected it, like you said. And it was like kind of my ikigai, right? Things you're good at, the people respect you for, and you can get paid for at the same time, right? So if you can find your ikigai, I think it's very liberating. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say a couple of things there. I have heard this definition of flow, and I really like it, which is using all your skills and doing it excellently makes you feel really good. And I don't know if that coincides, but the thing I was asking, thinking to myself in the head when you were saying there's these 4 categories, and Ben, I was looking at you, I'm like, Ben, where do you think you
I was thinking about the same thing
in those 4 categories?
It's a good question. I mean, I definitely love to be connected. I love people. I love to, talk and chat, and you can't shut me up sometimes. But I would probably lean towards the creative, to be honest, which is interesting maybe. But yeah, I mean, that's where I put myself between those 2. I think those were, which most people, I assume, Kavin, kind of saddle 2 or 3 of them together, right?
People saddle. They do have a dominant one. People saddle. I that's why I'm saying these are not compartments. Yeah. You don't lock somebody into one of them. But the thing is that if you know which one you thrive on, you have to include that in what you do. Otherwise, you'll starve.
Yeah, Dom, where are you at?
You'll starve yourself.
God, so I don't know. I'm sorry, but when you named all 4 categories, like you named the first one, I'm like, yeah, that's me. And
But
then you
I
named the
think
second one, I'm like,
that
yeah, that's me.
that one
And
by
then you
definition might be the fourth one. I mean, it's like you got to have a little bit of
I
everything. The
know.
balance, like seeing it all together. I mean, I think yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Like, and then because he got the last one, he's like, someone who's always looking at the big picture, and I'm like, geez, that's me too. So yeah, I was having a lot of fun with that in my head when you were talking about that. So thank you for that. I want to rapid fire here just so we can help people. This podcast is all about people getting more out of themselves. And you have all these different things. I just want to go super fast on just a few of them. One thing I think that's different than what a lot of people hear is earthing. I got introduced to earthing years and years and years ago. I got an earthing sheet. I slept amazing for about 2 weeks, and then it started feeling like it had no effect after that. Can you take 60 seconds on earthing just so people know what it is and why it's important?
Sure. So, Dom, earthing, there is basically, it's the first paradigm in my book is I talk connecting with the earth. That you can connect with the earth 2 ways. One is that you align yourself with the circadian rhythm, which is the sun cycle, right? We talked about that a little briefly. And second is physically connecting with the earth, which means your feet are touching ground, and I'm saying, without shoes. And so there are 2 aspects to that. One is that there is an electrochemical aspect that we believe that the earth is an ion sink, okay? That it's a negative ion sink, right? And it's almost like when you take antioxidants, the reason you take antioxidants is that they neutralize all the free radicals, right? Because the antioxidants have these extra ions that they can give off and then neutralize the free radicals. Well, the earth is seen as that sink where you can, when you touch it acts like that. Now, the studies looking at that are all been like a very low power, but there are a few studies that showed that people who grounded, okay, and or they use grounding mats in the hospital, their wounds healed faster, okay, because if they were grounded, and we know that there is some effect to it, okay, and like that, okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
Is there, so for just neuro health, can you give us just like a quick, just bang, 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 just tell us, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this? I think that's what people would love to hear.
Yes. So, number one thing, I tell people that your breath is your best friend. And if you can focus on your breath, it will center you in the present, okay? And for neuro, from most people are bouncing back between sort of regrets of the past and anxieties of the future. But if you can implement any breath practice, the easiest one is breath watching, just being conscious of your breath. It will give you a focus. And if you can do that, even for a minute, it's a good start. Okay? Eastern cultures then work you from there to 5 minutes to 10 to ultimately you want to get to 15, 20 minutes. If you can do that, that focus will build that flow state for you. Okay, that's a fantastic practice. I would say that's enough for people. If you can just start there, that you automatically that will evolve into higher states of attention.
Got it. And obviously, lots of talk out there about breath work and
we had
and
Brian
those types of
Coons.
things. Anything that's out of the ordinary that people wouldn't normally hear that you think is really important?
With the breath, we know that when your exhale compared to your inhale, okay, is lengthened. So if I inhale for 4 counts and I exhale for 6 to 8 counts, automatically it shifts me from sympathetic tone to parasympathetic tone. Your body just all of a sudden it flips the switch. Okay, you could do, anybody listening to this, you could do this right now. Breathe for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 8. Automatically, you start switching to parasympathetic tone, which means that the control to your nervous system is in your hands now. You have the remote control in your hands. That means if you're in a situation where you're stressed, where your sympathetic tone is high, your cortisol is high, you have a breath that gives you that remote control to grab that back and pull yourself out of that stress sympathetic tone to parasympathetic.
I like that one. That was simple and easy. A couple of, sorry, Ben.
No,
did you have
just
a question?
I do a lot of my surgeries awake or like light sedation, and I do that with many patients. I'm like, okay, take a big deep breath, hold it for as long as you can, and blow it out slow through a little tiny straw like you're with a little coffee. And you can, because I'll be monitoring them, and I can see my staff thinks I'm like magic. I'll see their heart rate at 120, and it just like ticks down, and you get it down to 80 like that. And that's another like scientifically proved thing. Proven thing.
It's amazing. Like, it's a simple thing, and people don't realize that they're holding that remote control. Yeah.
It's simple, but I don't do it.
Couple of
And I know
quick
it's there,
questions.
you know how it goes. It's like life.
Just a couple of quick questions. How are you finding this as a business? You're a doctor. You know, you have a business. How do you like being a businessman? Like, how do you feel about it? What are your challenges?
This is that part of me that it juices me. You know, I enjoy these conversations, honestly, and you know, it's just it's a part of me because you know, when people come on my screen and I see premature volume loss, when I see like a 50-year-old whose brain looks like a 60, 70-year-old, I wish I could have a conversation with that person, honestly. Okay. But I'm not able to. But here I can. And here I can talk to you and that other people maybe out there listening to me. And it gives me a space to voice what I'm seeing on my screen and really impact people from that perspective, you know. So it's very enjoyable. And, you know, for me, I think the message is simple. I think we have a primal design. We just need to align with it.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I think that what you're doing is critical. I think the problem is people don't realize it's critical. What does someone like you do to decompress? I think people would want to know.
With everybody, you know, both of you guys are so busy as well as I am, you know, and I believe the middle of our day, all hell can break loose. You know, we're dealing with all sorts of things, right? First thing that I teach people is that that's the only thing you can control, your bookends, right? And if you get the bookends right, have a very strong start of your day and a very strong finish. And just dial that in, okay? Because those are the only points that are in your control. And it's like a suspension bridge. When that first pillar and the second pillar are strong, you can put any amount of weight on it. So I think that's how I approach it. So I just work on dialing in those two parameters.
Ben, that's kind of like you.
A
That's
little bit
like
like me.
you. You got
I
your
walk in the morning.
Well, no, you got your walk in
sauna
the
at night.
morning, and then you got your God. I'm like your
Sauna at night,
podcast wife.
yeah.
I'm like Ben's podcast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Spouse. Like, but then you have your you got your infrared.
Yeah. No,
sauna,
mine's
in the evening?
hot stone, but yeah, not infrared.
Oh, hot stone.
Hot
Sorry.
stone. Okay, nice. No,
Yeah.
sauna. I love sauna. I enjoy the steam,
Mhm.
the steam part too. I mean, that's my favorite. But red light also, it's great as well. But yeah, I think that's it. I think if you can dial that in, that the beginning and end, that's it. You'll that's all you need.
Okay, so just a couple of things. I think one thing we always ask this question, like, what do you believe you would say is real magic? I felt like I heard it was the breath. The breath is real magic. Is that a fair statement?
The breath is the magic, but I think the magic is the fact that your primal intelligence is the magic, right? That's the solution. You we're looking for these magic potions. We're looking for these magic drinks to, you know, drink in the morning. I'm not against any of that. I'm saying there may be some validity, but there is no one drink that's going to fix it. Okay, but your internal primal intelligence can fix almost most problems that I see with people, right? People say I have brain fog, I can't focus and whatnot. I think that you have that primal intelligence built in. I think you just have to support it with the proper proactive measures and lifestyle changes. Yeah.
In one sentence, can you, or two, can you tell again people what primal intelligence is, just so they can walk away with that?
Yes.
Can you just super condense it?
Yep. No, so I talked about, you know, aligning with our primal design, right? Like just that once you know that this is how you were designed to be, and that is, you know, connecting with those 7 elements, right? Like once you have alignment with that, you automatically awaken that, I think, primal intelligence within you. And that is like, connection with the earth, body, food, your mind, connecting with your kind of inner drive or purpose, and with people. And then last is that, forming that connection with your mortality, right? All of those connections forms that primal intelligence.
Got it. Okay. That was great. Thank you for that. And then what would you say? There's a lot of talk out there about brain health and things you should do that you think is absolute bullshit.
I think a lot of there's
Don't hold back,
things
Kavin. Don't
out
hold
there
back,
where-
brother. Get it out there.
Don't be holding back, Kavin. Come on, hit it.
Have you seen like some of those people wear those bands and they're like it reads their brain waves, and people are trying to control their brain waves. And what I feel that is, you cannot think yourself into a particular state, right? It's that I believe your physiology impacts your psychology, and your psychology impacts your physiology, and it's a big crosstalk, right? But a lot of times people think that I can think myself into this particular state or whatnot. So people wear these bands and they're watching their waveform, and they think, they're like, oh, okay, let me change it. That's not how it works, right? Because for me is that just work on the remote control part of it, right? What is impacting your psychology is your physiology. Work on the physiology properly, it will automatically impact your psychology. So it's sometimes like I just laugh at it because I'm like, it's such a so
Headbands are bullshit. I get it.
Yeah.
We
I didn't know you were going to go that hard, Kavin.
Kavin, if we like to ask this question too, if money wasn't an issue, like what would you be doing with your life other than this?
Other than this, okay. I would travel all over the world, because I've changed 22 houses in my lifetime, and because my dad was with the United Nations, so I've lived all over the world. I've seen different cultures, but one of the things that I've gotten, the perspective I've gotten, is that we're all the same. You go all over the world, and people are the same. The solutions are the same problems, same solutions. And it's so when you start seeing when you start seeing that common thread amongst everything, it's very refreshing, because then you can connect with almost anybody, because you realize that we're just kind of built from the same.
We're all animals.
Come
Just
from
a
the
bunch
same
of
food.
animals.
Yeah, we're all
a bunch of animals.
Yeah.
Last question, and this one sounds cheesy, but we kind of like it, and I think it goes to your point of realizing we're mortal and enjoying it. But like, what would you want your tombstone to say if they were going to write it on there? Like, we want to know kind of what Kavin did. What was he about?
Yeah. Well, I would want it to say that people were better off because you lived. And so that's every day. That's my goal. Is to.
Man,
just,
he's like captain of the
someone.
podcast, Dom. This is exactly what we want, man.
That was great.
Yeah,
Wasn't
that was
that
a good
great?
one.
Actually, that was great, Kavin. Like,
That was a good one.
That was amazing. I just want to say we thank you so much for coming. This is Dr. Kavin Mistry. I want to spell it KavinMistry. It's KavinMistryMD.com. Do I have that right?
Yes. So KavinMistryMD.com. That's the website. And I made a resource available for everybody. That's it. I've been asked this multiple times, so I just made it available. So all these different connections we talked about that kind of primal intelligence. There is a free assessment that goes through questions. It'll take you 3 minutes. It asking you how you are, where you rate, how your lifestyle rates in terms of all these connections we just talked about, in terms of your primal alignment. And it will give you a score, but it will also tell you where you're deficient and what you can work on. And so if you go to the website, you'll see a pop-up. You can take that quiz, that assessment, and use the results and make some changes.
Thanks, man.
Listen, we love it. Everyone needs to go to KavinMistryMD.com to check that out. Take the assessment. I'm going to take the assessment. I don't know about you, Ben, but I want to exchange.
I'm a little nervous. Yeah, I'm always nervous about those things.
You need extra help? Kavin's going to help you. And the book also is Primal Health Design.
Primal Health Design. It's on Amazon and everywhere else books are sold. And again, if you do that assessment, it will tell you some sections in my book that you can read to kind of fix those deficits. So it's all there.
Kavin, thank you so much for joining us. That was actually great, incredibly informative. So thank you so much. And listen, we hope to see you again.
Keep it up, man. You're making a change. I like it.
Take care.